I wanted to give you guys an update on the mill. I've got a little over 11,000 hours now, and since the last time I had showed you, I think I had 10,700 or something like that in the last review video. But I want to show you several things that we've done that you'll want to watch for too. So this radiator doesn't normally come with spacers between the two brackets here, and then this can rub on here, the back of your welds here and here, or at the top, and you'll start to get a leak in these here, and then over time, if you don't keep this blown out, it'll create moisture inside the fins when it rains if the sawdust is stuck inside this. So then you'll get a hole in your radiator over time. You just got to keep that blown out. But I've replaced both of those. One of the other things that I wanted to show you and what made us do this was this bolt, and I've talked about this in other videos, but this bolt here, this one right here, snapped in half. Now the ones that come from the factory are usually grade 5 bolts, and what happened was the head of it snapped off from the pressure. So it let this come out and wasn't touching the head, and then whenever we started back sawing, the head would move as soon as it would go into a log. To change this out and do it easily, when this bolt breaks off in here, you've got to remove this whole hydraulic tank and everything. Now, if the bolt was just pulled out, it wouldn't be bad, but it's hard to get out of there without taking this hydraulic tank off. If the bolt breaks and you can't get a drill or anything down in there, the only way to do it is to remove this tank. So we had to take the tank off and remove this whole thing here. We put new bearings in it. That leads me to the next thing, is these right here. So we've replaced these back two, and I want to show you what the difference is. And you can see those two side by side, and you can't tell in the video, but this one is much wider than this is. And that's because it's like kneading dough. You know, when you roll over dough, it spreads out. So these tend to flatten out, and there's a 1/8 of an inch depth between this and this piece here, where that roller bearing has went up and down on that head. And I'll show you what an old one looks like, so you can look at yours. But if you look here, look at that line where it's bent out, where it's flattened out down through there. So it's hoofed itself out. You can see there. Those aren't straight from the pressure and where they've been ridden on over time. And then you can see the ridge. See that ridge right here? In that? So it's set there, and that bearing has rolled over that back and forth, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's widened that metal and pressed this out. Now what that does is it lets your head shift. So it's not going to be sitting exactly straight on your mass. And you can see the other one here, how it's all bowed out. It needs changed severely bad. Now these have almost 12,000 hours on them. And like I said, when we first got this mill, we had a bunch of head issues, which they fix now by putting these kits in. The other thing that I just had to change out was this fuel pump. And I don't know how much they are from Woodmizer, but you can get these from Amazon for probably, I don't know, I think it was like 12 bucks or 15 bucks. And it's a different style. It's a little bit bigger, and the head of it is a little bit wider, but it fits perfectly on this. I'll put a link in the bio to the exact one I've got. You don't have to cut the wires or anything like that. The wires that come on this one plug directly into the factory wiring harness from Woodmizer. And so you can literally buy this piece here and change it out with yours. Mine started to get to where I was having to pump this in the mornings to get it to push through this fuel pump. So I had to change that out. And once I changed that out, now I can turn the key on, it fires right up. And the fuel efficiency went up a little bit. I'm guessing this had clogged up or it just wasn't working properly. So it was harder to pull the fuel through there, because basically you've got this fuel tank. It runs from the fuel tank through the line, goes through the line, and then goes back here and goes into the fuel filter and goes through this pump, and then it goes into your injector pump and a few other things. And so it goes through all these different, you've got this piece, the fuel filter, the pump, the injector pump on the side of the motor, the tank. So you've got all these different pieces that all that stuff flows through. But I was really impressed that the original one made it, like I said, I think I've got almost 12,000 hours on this mill. And the original one was only probably, I'd say it was 3/4 of the size of this. So like if you cut it off directly at the bolt, because the head of this part is much longer, and they've got a nice hole on the other side between here, so you can stick an even bigger neck one through the hole and it sets in there. And then your two mounts are on each side here and here. This probably took, I don't know, 15 minutes to change out, because you pull this off, pull the front off, take the bolts loose, unplug it, put the other one on. Not a hard process at all. And other than that, I haven't really had to change anything out or fix anything. But my next two things that I'll have to do, and I've already got them here, but if you guys are starting to get bowed out parts here, and you can see on this front one see how it's swelled out right here? It's not supposed to be like that. So what that's doing is it's not letting your bearings stay really tight against the mass, because these will only go in so far. Basically, you just tighten them up to where it's flush against the tubing here. And if you look at this other one beside it, it's literally flat on both sides, and you can see how it has no wear. That's how they're supposed to look. And they're supposed to wear evenly over time, and mine seemed like they did. Unless you was just cutting something repetitively every day to where you didn't move on the mass much, you wouldn't get that much change. But I was starting to see cants not be perfectly square, and I had went through the whole mill and tried to straighten everything out, and what had started to happen was those right there are smashing down, and also that bolt was cracked, I guess, and then when it broke, it was letting the head flap around a lot. So I put all that new in there and put the bearings in there new, so it's going to tighten the head up and square it up on that mass perfectly, to where you're not getting different levels of the head as it goes up and down the mass. I'll keep you guys updated on anything that breaks as we go through the process, and things to look for. Some of that'll help when you're going to buy one. Like I said, this got almost 12,000 hours on it, and those have lasted that long, and they probably would have been all right. I probably could have put the bearing in there, set it, and been okay, but I'm just one of them people that likes to fix things as I go and kind of keep the mill new so it's not ragged out, and if I ever go to sell it, then someone's not getting a piece of junk.